ببینید که تو صدای من تداخل نکنه، حالا این رو باید درست کنیم یه دفعه. خوشحالم که همین الان با شما هستم از سری برنامه‌های جدید NICTV و اسم برنامه شد ساعت سیاست با رخسان گنجی. خب خیلی خوشحالم که بود دوست خیلی خوبم که تیمرمن امروز هستم و برنامه رو شروع میکنم. که تیمرمن روزنامه‌نگار، نویسنده سیاسی، نامزد کنگره امریکا در 2 دوره شده بود و خیلی خیلی با ما ایرانی ها واقعا در این سالها همکاری کرده، برای آزادی ایران واقعا کن زحمت کشیده و برای نسل من خب ما آشناییم. ما از اولی که کن شروع کرد که در سال 1995 بنیاد دموکراسی در ایران رو شروع کرد و نیوزلترهایی که دائم میداد و تمام لابیایی که میکرد و با گروه های مختلف ایرانی آزادی خواهان فعالیت میکرد، کن در کنار ما بود. حالا ازش خواهش کردم به خاطر این کتاب Countdown to Crisis که خیلی سر صدا کرده و به خاطر اتفاقاتی که در میدل ایست داره میفته و انتخابات امریکا، آقای ترامپ و اینا، با هم دیگه دوباره صحبت کنیم. من به انگلیسی با کن صحبت میکنم، برای شما به فارسی ترجمه میکنم. Ken, I just was telling my compatriots that I'm really proud to have my first show with you. My generation has witnessed all your help with the Iranian diaspora, with the Iranian cause for freedom, for regime change. You've really tirelessly been there, and I mean, we really, really appreciate it. All the work that you've done with, your organization, all the newsletters, every news that you put out, all the different groups that you supported. Not only the monarchists, I know you worked with Ruzbe Farahanipour and a lot more, Fayanik Bach, God bless his soul, a lot of people who are fighting for the freedom of Iran. And you've been tireless. We really, really, really appreciate that. Your book, Countdown to Crisis, has become a big, big hit in the Iranian community, once again, in the new generation. And I was looking to take some questions out of the book yesterday, and I noticed that you dedicated this book to the freedom fighters of tomorrow. So the freedom fighters of tomorrow are discussing this book heavily now. The new generation, the young generation, the generation that didn't know all that happened during the past 45 years in the opposition. The generation that's saying there was no real opposition. That's why we're here now. You witnessed the bad, the good, the bickering, all that stuff with the opposition, and you tried very hard to help groups come together. I witnessed that. I wanted to let you talk to the freedom fighters a little bit about yourself, how you got interested in the Iranian. I know that you've written all these books that if I want to read them all, it's amazing. We'll talk about some of them during the show. But how was it that you became interested with the Iranian cause and the Iranian diaspora and the Iranian opposition? Let me just translate real quick and then I'll let you go on. از آقای تیمرمن تشکر کردم به خاطر بودنش در کنار ما ایرانی ها. خب نسل ما میدونستیم آقای تیمرمن چه کارایی کرده. با اپوزیسیون چقدر سعی کرد که بیاره همه رو با هم دیگه صحبت کنه، بتونیم همه با هم باشیم. ازش میپرسم که کن چطور شد که به علاقه‌مند شدی به کاز ایران، به آزادی ایران و با اپوزیسیون ایران همراه شدی؟ اوکی کن.
Well, Roxanne, I was in Paris in 1978 and 1979 when the revolution took place. And almost immediately, the first refugees from Islamic fascism began arriving in Europe. I met Bakhtiar at that point. Later, I met Bani Sadr, who was the first regime, or the second president after Rezai, interviewed all those people as a journalist and wrote my first book, really, which came out in 1987, called Fanning the Flames, Greed, Guns, and Geopolitics in the Gulf War. It was about arms sales to both Iran and Iraq. And it's gone on since then. I've met so many people that my wife and I fell in love with. We found these individuals, leaders of groups, politicians, people who weren't politicians. We found them to come from such a rich culture and to have fled such tyranny. Our hearts went out to them, and even today we have a strong, a large place in our heart for Iran and Iranians, even though I cannot go to Iran. there's a price on my head.
Oh, definitely. خب آقای تیمرمن میگن که من سال 1978 تا 79 توی پاریس بودم و اونجا ما با وقتی که این فاشیسم اسلامی شروع شد و دیدیم که داره به اروپا هم وارد میشه از همون زمان، با بختیار، با منیصت، با رضایی اینا میت کردم و باهاشون مصاحبه کردم درباره اتفاقاتی که داره میفته و کتابی هم نوشتم که درباره فروش اسلحه بوده. What was the name of the guy with the arms sale? Gorbani Far, right? So did you even ever interview?
No, I never met Gorbani Far. No, but I certainly did a lot of investigation into him and his networks. Yeah.
Right, right. Did you get to Gorbani? Did you get to interview Gorbani, who was also with Gorbani Far?
He never came to Europe that I recall. He was in Algeria.
Right. Yeah. خب ایشون خب تو همین فروش اسلحه درباره قربانی فر خیلی چیز کردن، کتابی هم نوشتن درباره این موضوع و از اونجا با ایرانیایی که مثل ماها در به در شده بودن آشنا شدن و داستاناشون رو میشنیدن و خیلی علاقه‌مند به ایران شدن. So then how did you get involved with the opposition groups of Iran, like Prince Reza Pahlavi, later my own father, Dariush Homayun, and all these different groups?
Well, most of them I met in Paris when I was still in Paris. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, when we moved to the United States in 93, I worked for Congress briefly, and then set up a group called the Foundation for Democracy in Iran in 1995, Iran.org. So Iran.org is the website that I still own, that I still operate from time to time. But one of the founding members of FDI was an Ayatollah in Paris, Mehdi Rouhani. And I took a lot of flack for this. People did not understand why I would want to have a Shiite Ayatollah on my board. And it was for a very simple reason. He understood better than any of us the Islamo-fascists who were in power in Tehran. He understood that Islam was not just a religion. It was a way of life. It was a totalitarian system intent on enslaving the people. And he was able to explain that to me from the inside of Islam.
Ken, did he not go to Senate and for one of the hearings with his outfit? I remember that, I think.
I took Ayatollah Rouhani around Washington to many different places. One of those, some of those stories I tell in a new book that's going to come out called The Iran House, Khane Iran, which really tells the inside story of many of these meetings that I had and the people that I tried to help. But I took Ayatollah Rouhani to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Right after Khatami was elected in 1997, and the Clinton administration believed in the smiling turban, right? They believed Khatami was smiling turban. And Ayatollah Rouhani and me, but we together went to the Defense Intelligence Agency to disabuse them of that illusion. There was no smiling turban. There were no moderates among the clergy in the Iranian regime. And that was something that we had to work very hard to get through. And it took many years for them finally to understand that in Washington.
I wonder if they still understand it. I don't know.
Well, the Biden people, I think, have a very peculiar relationship with the regime in Tehran. And I wonder if they have not been paid off.
Oh, we're here. Okay, we're back. خب آقای تیمرمن میگه که وقتی که برگشت به امریکا 1993 با اپوزیسیون ایران آشنایی پیدا کرد بیشتر. اون زمان در 1995 بنیاد دموکراسی ایران FDI رو درست کرد و وبسایتشون iran.org که الان هم بعضی وقتا که میگه رو چیزی روش میذاره و اونجا روی بورد FDI آیت اللهی بود، من یادم اسم آیت الله روحانی که آیت الله روحانی همه میگفتن آقای تیمرمن تو چرا آخوند شیعه رو گذاشتی، ولی که میگه اون آیت الله روحانی دقیقاً میدونست که چه بلایی به سر ایران اومده و این اسلام فاشیستی که آمده و چجوری تو زندگی مردم اثر خواهد گذاشت، چجوری کنترل خواهد کرد زندگی مردم رو. و که میگه من این چهره اسلام رو میخواستم به امریکایی‌ها نشون بدم و خیلی جاها بنیاد امنیت ملی و اینا همه آقای روحانی رو میبردم با خودم که بگیم، مخصوصا زمان کلینتون که کلینتون فکر میکردش که خاتمی که انتخاب شده میگه آخوند خندان، امامه خندان. ما رفتیم گفتیم نه اصلاحاتی وجود داره، نه آخوند خوبی وجود داره و این آخوندی که حالا مثلا ریفورم بشه و اصلاحات بکنه این چیزا وجود نداره و آیت الله با من میومد که کمک من کنه. خب اثرگذار وقتی یکی از خودشون بیاد. It's very important that one of their own would come and say what the true nature of this regime was going to be. Now you spoke about Clinton. It brought me to the book. There was a chance meeting with Prince Reza Pahlavi. I don't know if it was a chance meeting, if it was set up. You don't even know exactly, unless now you know. I don't know. In the book, you didn't know. That took place during the same time. And Clinton told Reza Pahlavi that he's going to do whatever he can to remove this regime, to get rid of this regime, to sanction them harder. He agreed that he made a mistake with them in that chance meeting, right? So, but then he goes ahead and later he stops the budget of the most effective opposition, which was Derafsh. Clinton did that. So what is this thing that takes place in the US? You know, axis of evil, no axis of evil, sanctioning, not removing sanctions, but letting people, even in this country, move around the sanctions somehow. How do you assess that? And that meeting, well, if you could tell us a little bit more about that meeting.
Well, the meeting came after Clinton had tried very hard to renew relations with the Islamic regime in Tehran. And I was involved, along with Senator D'Amato and others, in stopping that effort and passing the first Iran sanctions legislation in April and May of 1995. So that cut off Clinton's initiative to reach out to the Tehran regime, which is what he wanted to do and what he kept trying to do later on in his administration. What he said to Reza Pahlavi was not that I'm going to put more sanctions on. He said, I want to have better relations with the Iranians, pretending that a relationship with the Iranian people was the same as a relationship to the Iranian regime. That obviously is not true. Clinton lied. He was a liar. He and his wife, there's an old joke, you know, how do you know that the Clintons are lying? Because their lips are moving. So he was lying to Reza Pahlavi, he was lying to me, and he was lying to the American people.
Okay, that's interesting. Then you got more involved with Reza Pahlavi during this period. And for me to say that,
how much you need to translate to our listeners.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I totally forgot. I'm sorry. Thanks for reminding me. خب آقای تیمرمن میگه که ما موقع کلینتون دروغگو بود، برای اینکه شاهزاده رضا پهلوی تو این کتاب میگه که یه رستورانی بوده تیمرمن و شاهزاده داشتن ناهار میخوردن که یه سری بادیگارد میان و میگن این میز رو باید خالی کنین و میز رو موو میکنن میارنشون به یه میز دیگه میشوننشون. یه دفعه متوجه میشن که کلینتون داره میاد تو رستوران میخواسته سر اون میز بشینه و کلینتون که میاد رچه آقای تیمرمن بلند میشه دستشو دراز میکنه میگه آقای کلینتون من تیمرمنم، ایشون هم شاهزاده رضا پهلوی، شاهزاده رو معرفی میکنه و کلینتون اونجا به شاهزاده رضا پهلوی میگه که آره what did he exactly say? We're going to try and when the prince said that, you know, we're glad that you sanctioned them, I remember he answered we're going to work with the people of Iran or something like that. Is that what Clinton answered?
He pretended that, but what Clinton really wanted to do
was to deal with them.
Was to deal with the Iranian regime.
کلینتون میگه بله شاهزاده میگه مرسی که شما سانکشن کردین و فشار دارین میارین، میگه بله ما با مردم ایران راه خواهیم آمد و فلان اینا، ولی کن میگه دروغ میگه و کن تیمرمن راست میگه، برای که اینا همش می‌خواستن با دولت ایران یه جوری بسازن. کن تیمرمن یه کنفرانس هیرینگی گذاشت به اسم دماتو هیرینگز که اتفاقا پدر خود من my father was testifying at that the Mato hearing. He was one of the people who testified against the regime. که خیلی کمک کرد که امریکا نتونه با خاتمی و دار دستش بسازه. Okay, because I'm trying to build up to this, and I really don't want to sound like it's being negative against the prince, but we have to say all this stuff because this is history. Why didn't Prince Reza Pahlavi come to the meeting there, to the D'Amato hearings then? I know you say it in the book, but I want you to say it.
Look, you know, Reza Pahlavi had an entourage. He had people surrounding him, Colonel Ovaisi in particular. And Colonel Ovaisi believed that Reza should not expose himself. There had been previous efforts to put Reza Pahlavi on the front lines, notably during the Reagan administration. Mm-hmm. There had been an effort to set up a government in exile on Quiche Island. And Colonel Ovaisi and others in Reza Pahlavi's entourage did not think that was a wise thing to do. Shahryar Ahi did not think that was a wise thing to do.
They told him he's already a king.
Right. And that's the way, you know, I wouldn't say that about Shahryar, but I certainly about Colonel Ovaisi. You know, Colonel Ovaisi at one point in one of these meetings, I remember him saying, you know, but the people will carry the prince to Tehran on their shoulders. And I was wondering what people and what shoulders and how far would they get. So I think Reza Pahlavi had a problem with his entourage, and I think that is something that dogged him for many, many years. There's one story that I tell in the book. I think it's very important. It's about an FBI agent named Ed Ball, and Ed Ball was the head of the Iran unit at the FBI in Washington, D.C. And Ed Ball was very concerned because the FBI had detected an effort to infiltrate the entourage of Reza Pahlavi. And it was not one person.
Or they had infiltrated, because I think when I read it, I got the impression that there were people from the regime that had infiltrated into the inner circle.
And it was not one person.
Mm-hmm.
It was not two people, not three people. It was 5 different individuals that Ed Ball knew had penetrated the entourage of Reza Pahlavi. So he goes to meet with Reza, and he says, look, I want to meet with you, you know, one-on-one and lay all this out with you. And
Ovaisi's there.
And Reza said, no, you will come and meet with me and with Colonel Ovaisi. And so Ed Ball lays out all of the information. Again, this is all in the book. You can read this in the book.
I know. Yeah.
Ed Ball lays out this information, and Reza turned to Ovaisi and he said, well, Ahmad, what do you think? He said, this is all a lie, Your Highness. This is not true. And that was it.
So how did that sever the relationship between the FBI and him? Or
let's just say that those, and the FBI was there, let me remind you, to protect him, to warn him about a security threat. And Ahmad Ovaisi said, no, there's no such threat. We're not worried. We have it all under control. We don't need your help.
Okay, I'm going to translate so far, but this is very important because this is why we're here today after 45 years, I believe. آقای تیمرمن توی زمان دماتو وقتی دعوت میکرد که بیاین تستیفای کنیم بر علیه جمهوری اسلامی، شاهزاده رضا پهلوی اول قبول کرده بود. مثل خیلی چیزای دیگه شاهزاده قبول میکرد، میرفت خونه، مثل امضا که با پدرم کرد. حالا من نمیخوام با پدرم اوقات این برنامه کنم که شما فکر کنین من چیز شخصی دارم، اونو اصلا میذاریم کنار. ولی خب الان کن دعوت میکنه که بیاد برای دماتو هیرینگ، شاهزاده میره خونه، آقای آهی و آقای اویسی بهش میگن نه لازم نداره، شما شاهی، خب مردم هم شما رو شاه قبول دارن، این خطرناکه، نرو این کارو بکن. خب بله، براندازی خطرناکه، شاهزاده قسم خورده بود کار خطرناک دوست داره میکنه. ایشون نرفت، ولی خیلی ایرانیای دیگه رفتن. حالا من میخوام دلیل ایشون آقای پرسیدم از کن که آیا چرا فکر کنی نرفت؟ گفتم به خاطر همین آنتوراژی که بهش نمیذاشتن بره. و بعد تعریف کرد که ادبال که مسئول چیز ایرانیا بوده در اف بی آی توی واشنگتن، با شاهزاده تماس میگیره، میگه من باید بیام با شما شخصا تنهایی صحبت کنم. شاهزاده میگه نه، تنهایی نمیشه، باید حتما احمد اویسی هم تو اتاق باشه. و احمد اویسی بوده تو اتاق. وقتی ادبال میگه که شما دفترت از طرف 5 تا مأمور جمهوری اسلامی توش رخنه کردن و خطرناکه. شاهزاده به اویسی میگن که احمد تو چی فکر کنی؟ اویسی میگه نه اینا مزخرفه. Now I want to get to the point why Owaisi said that. Owaisi's father-in-law was Hushang Ram. And Hushang Ram is also Shahryar Ahi's uncle. Yes. And Hushang Ram had gone to Iran to get his belongings. And you say all this in the book.
Yes.
Of course, I don't think you mentioned that he's Shahriyar's uncle, but yes, he was Shahriyar's uncle.
Yes, I do.
So a lot of this had to do with Ram being in Iran and they not letting him come out. They let him go in, but they weren't letting him come out for a long time. So a lot of this had personal reasons that the prince had to act in a certain way for Ahi and Owaisi's relative who was stuck in Iran not be hurt in any way. Do you think that that's not a reason?
It may have been a reason, and let's recall that the Iranian regime had launched an extensive effort to recover assets of the former Shah.
Right.
They had, and I write about this in the book as well, they took over the Pahlavi Foundation in New York, that building on 650 Fifth Avenue. They transferred ownership to a new board of directors. In fact, I am still working with victims of the 9/11 attacks, the September 11th attacks, who have sued the Iranian regime. And, they won control over that building because the regime took it. They seized it. So Hushang Ram had authority over accounts with the Umran Bank, which became the Bank Malat. And they were able to get the keys to those accounts and other assets. But this is something that they were trying everywhere. They were trying it in the courts. They were trying to get assets in the courts in Europe, in Switzerland in particular, and other countries. And they were pursuing those assets wherever they could and through all kinds of people, including those in the entourage of Reza Pahlavi. Ahmad Ansari, for example.
Right. I'm going to get to that. Don't go there. Okay. از آقای تیمرمن پرسیدم که هوشنگ رام پدر خانم آقای اویسی بود و دایی آقای آهی و اون زمانی که اینا نذاشتن شاهزاده بره برای دماتا هیرینگز چون آقای هوشنگ رام رفته بود ایران که مال اموالش رو پس بگیره و اونجا گرفته بودنش برای که هوشنگ رام رئیس بانک عمران بود. رئیس بانک عمران یعنی تمام پولای خاندان پهلوی بیشتر تو ایران تو بانک عمران و دست هوشنگ رام و هوشنگ رام یه مقداری از اون پولا رو برای که بتونه خودش رو خلاص کنه بیاد بیرون چیز کرده بود، داده بود کلیدا و اینا رو، یعنی کودا و اینا رو داده بود که اینا بگیرن. و یکی از دلایلی که من باور دارم که نمیذاشتن شاهزاده خیلی منوور کنه به خاطر همین رابطه ها و ضابطه هایی بود که براشون بود دیگه، برای که ممکن بود رامو اگه شاهزاده بره توی همچی هیرینگ دماتو بیان حالا رامو تو ایران برای سرش بیارن. این به نظر من اینا اثر گذاشته. آقای تیمرمن میگه آره اینا ممکنه اثر گذاشته باشه. یادمون هم نره که ساختمان بنیاد علوی که بنیاد پهلوی بود اون موقع، اول انقلاب اینا گرفتن و الان هم خانواده‌های مثلا کسایی که تو 9/11 کشته شدن دارن سعی میکنن که اون ساختمان رو بگیرن بابت غرامتی که باید بهشون داده بشه. و خیلی دور و بر شاهزاده رضا پهلوی از پولای این چون جمهوری اسلامی دائم دنبال است که این پولا رو پس بگیره یه جوری. احمدعلی انصاری که رفت به ایران که حالا سوال خواهم کرد درباره احمدعلی انصاری قول و قرارهایی داده بود. Okay, I'm going to read from your book.
Okay.
Just real quick and then I'll ask you a question. This is when Ansari goes to see Fallahian and he explains that he's at Fallahian's house. He told them about Reza Pahlavi and his lawsuit, and he told them, he told him, which means Fallahian, about Reza's lifestyle, his cowardice, his indecision, and he told him of his wish, which was to publish a book that would simply describe what he had experienced over the past decade. Me and the Pahlavis, he said, that would be the title. Ansari said he was willing to help the Islamic Republic recover the assets of the former Shah if they would help him to defend himself against Reza's lawsuit. Fallahian just smiled. We have to keep this boy Reza in the game, he thought. Much better than sending a hit team to dispatch him. Keep him in the game and let him neutralize the others. Besides, we have our sources. Don't ever forget, he reminded Ansari, we Persians invented the game of chess. Okay, so Falahian, you know, there was people being assassinated at the hands of the regime from the get-go. Owaisi's brothers,
Right.
Shaya Shafiq, Sirus Elahi, Boy Ahmadi, Golizada, all the son, all these kids were being killed during by the hands of the regime. Reza Pahlavi didn't have one single, thank God, I'm not saying why, but not one single person was threatened or hurt or even killed at the hands of the regime. Is this not an accurate reason why they're not doing this? Even today, they think he's neutralizing the different. I'm sorry to say it. I never thought I would say this. I can't hear your mic. Is I think.
Okay, it's the host. You have muted the mic.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Now I hear you.
Okay, look, let's put this in context. In the early 1990s, 1995, 96, 98, Reza was not playing a big political role. There were other people. There were other parties. There was the Constitutionalists, there were the Republicans. There were other parties that were playing a political role, and Reza was not. He was holding back, and both Ahi and Owaisi were telling him to hold back until the moment was right. And they said, we have one trump card. You are the one trump card. We can only play you in that final game.
They told my dad that too. Yeah.
Right. And so remember that, when you criticize Reza, remember that he was being told by everybody to stand back and to hold back. Did the Iranian regime think that was useful to them? Yes, they did. They did. Falahian said that. But don't misconstrue that. That's what I'm trying to say.
I know. But Ken, somebody who has swore for this position, and I mean, I'm sure you're shocked that I'm saying this, but we all spent our youth fighting this fight together, all of us. He swore that he's going to take this position as the leader of the constitutionalists, at least. And the people around him never even let him have a proper, how should I say, united constitutionalist party. We were bickering, and the cause of this bickering was the circle around Reza. They divided and conquered. So do you think as a leader, he should not have stepped in and say, hey guys, there's some things I need to do? I mean, I don't know. You've been an advisor to him. What do you think?
Roxanne, maybe you need to put subtitles or something up here so your Persian listeners can understand.
Oh, I know. I will.
Okay, but look, let me say this. Look, I am a Christian. Okay, I am a Christian. I wear an Assyrian cross because I spent a lot of time in northern Iraq with Assyrian Christians, and I believe very much what St. Paul said. Each of us has a different talent. Some are preachers, some are evangelists, some are mathematicians, some are accountants, some are politicians. Don't expect Reza Pahlavi to be something he is not. He is who he is. Other people need to step up to the plate. And I have heard for so many years criticism of Reza Pahlavi, expecting him to be somebody he is not. Where are the other leaders? Where are the other leaders stepping up to the plate? I don't see them. And whenever they do, they get shot down by other members of the exile community. The performance of the exiles has been pathetic for the past 40 years from every side, from the left to the right. And it's something that I think is tremendously important. Where are the wealthy Iranians? Where are the Iranian expatriates? Tell me one political prisoner, Homayun Moghadam, who has, I don't know how many billions of dollars in California. How many political prisoners has he ransomed from the jails of the regime? What about the strike fund? When you have people very courageous in the bus drivers union, teachers in the teachers union, these women who are protesting, they get thrown in jail. Where is the strike fund funded by the founder of Yahoo and of eBay. You know, these are all Iranian Americans. They are billionaires, and they have always sat on the sidelines. They have never helped the people of Iran. But when somebody steps forward, like Reza Pahlavi is stepping forward today, oh, no, he's just terrible. He's a failure. He should be doing more. They should be doing more. Everybody should be doing more. Don't put all of the blame on one person.
No, I agree with that. But I mean, as far as
some of that, I wish you would translate some of that.
Okay, sorry. خب من آقای تیمرمن درباره این موضوع صحبت کردیم که خب دور و بر شاهزاده مقداری همیشه شاهزاده عقب نگه داشتن. من برای باور بودم که نباید شاهزاده قبول بکنه هر چی اینو بهش میگن عقب بمونه. باید بگه آقا من قسم خوردم به این کار، من یه مقدار مسئولیت دارم، شما نمیتونید. آقای تیمرمن میگه که من یه مسیحی هستم و نمیتونم این بچه‌ها نذارین اینا رو نذارین، نمیخوام اینا رو نشون بدم. من یه مسیحی هستم و نمیتونم خداییش نمیتونم که چیز کنم که شما همه تقصیرها رو بندازین گردن رضا پهلوی، بقیه‌تون کجایین؟ و اگزمپلی که میزنه همایون معدم که خودش زندانی سیاسی بوده و خب این هم الان پول داری، تو چیکار کردی برای زندانیایی که تو سیاسی که الان هستن؟ آیا فاندی درست کردی که کمک بکنی، یا زنان اومدید فاندی درست کنی، یا برای اعتصابیون آیا صندوق اعتصابات درست کردید؟ خب بقیه کجا؟ این همه ایرانی پولدار، این همه نشستین کنار، توقع از یه نفر آدم داری که این حرفم درسته. البته حالا سوال میکنم که the reason that this is happening, I agree with you completely. I mean, the Iranians in Silicon Valley themselves could literally fund a revolution in Iran. They really can, with the amount of money they have. But instead, we have billionaires with tons of money helping NIAC, helping the lobby of the Islamic Republic. So this is where we have fallen short. We have the NIAC working really hard. When you guys were started with the desk of Iran State Department, Denny and those guys, NIAC wasn't really an issue. Amin Ahmadi had started AIC.
They didn't exist. They did not exist.
They didn't exist. Amin Ahmadi started AIC and he was trying to get all this stuff together. He didn't really happen until Zarif stepped in and funded Trita to start NIAC. And they've done a good job for their cause. Right. They've done an excellent job. They've placed all their people in the right positions, which is very hard.
Today, NIAC controls Middle East policy at the State Department.
Exactly.
So, they're all
exactly. And we have a minute. So that's where I have an issue with Reza Pahlavi's camp. We could have done that. We had money. Can you witness that? Okay, it had its shortcomings, but they did a lot compared to other oppositions. He could have joined forces with Derafsh Ghaviani. We could have been big. He had money, Derafsh had some money. It wasn't that much money like these people who now get these grants. But there was a lot that could have been done. But unfortunately, his camp, I'm not blaming him, but okay, he represents that camp. His camp has always divided everybody. We could have done a lot. Do you not agree that we could have done a lot?
Roxanne, I think there are many heroes of the Iranian resistance movement, of the Iranian opposition. I think your father was one of those heroes, and he put his life on the line for many years in Paris. I remember the first time that my wife and I met him. It was almost a clandestine meeting at a restaurant with bodyguards outside, and he was telling us how he had been trained by the French counter riot squad, the GIGN, to rappel with a rope down from his office building if he was attacked by the front door. So he would go out the window and rappel down. I don't remember whether it's 5 floors, 6 floors, how many stories it was.
3 floors, yeah.
This was the life that he led. And instead, what happened when he comes back to the United States after he loses the funding from the U.S. government under Clinton in 1995, what happens to him? Everybody accuses him of being a CIA stooge. This is what's the matter with the expatriate community. You have people who are true heroes, and they stand up, they step forward, and they get treated as CIA stooges. This is disgraceful.
When the CIA actually offered him to stay in Paris with one secretary, and they would give him the house and the guard, and they would pay for his place. And he told them, he said, I didn't come to do human rights work. He said, I was doing human rights work in Dallas. I thought you guys had some regime changing plan. I lost the lives of my closest friends. I'm not going to stay here for human rights work. And you're right. My father is one of the people that got destroyed by the Iranian community, and he held up high. But I mean, you're right. It's a cultural thing, which is right. Now I don't want to spend too much time because then this is going to, I hope one day you can come to Clubhouse and let these young kids who are now reading and translating this in the rooms ask you some questions. If you have time, I would really like to host something like that for you. If you decide, let me know. Now I want to concentrate on what's going on in the world today. That we all know, everybody knows that the problem is the Islamic Republic. Everything's happening through the proxies of the Islamic Republic. They are doing everything. But the world goes after everybody but the source of the problem. And this has gone on for all these years. How do you see that? I mean, in your book, you say this in the back of the book. It says, I don't know who wrote this part for you when they were writing it. It says Iran's covert nuclear weapons program, which is further developed than any of us imagined. The Islamic regime's secret alliance with Osama bin Laden and their plans for future attacks on America, the devastating intelligence failures and cover-ups that have kept us from dealing with the Iranian threat. This book was written, what, 2012?
2005.
2005. And we're still, this is fresh today as it could be.
Right. So you'll see when I did the Kindle version, which you had up there online earlier, that was in 2020, after the killing of Qasem Soleimani. And I wrote a preface to the 2020 Kindle version. I would really encourage everybody to get it. It's very inexpensive, $3.99. I think tomorrow it's going to be on sale for $2.99.
Okay.
But you'll see that the themes of that book, the dissension inside the opposition, the masterful counterintelligence of the regime, how they played the opposition, how they played the United States, their nuclear weapons program, how they kept it secret and kept it alive, all the while they were negotiating with the Western powers. They were the deceit underneath, and their continued constant support for international terrorism as a form of foreign policy. They saw terror as an arm of foreign policy. Those things I wrote about in 2005, you can write about them today. They are the same themes that are dominating the regime as it is today. It's just new faces, old policies. If you want to learn how they operate, read the book, because it hasn't changed. It really has not changed.
خب آقای تیمرمن توی این کتاب همین که من دستم معلوم کردم جلدش هم اینجاست که بیشترتون خریدین، پشت کتاب اگه بخونین اون موقع داره میگه که اینا دارن خیلی سریعتر کار اتمیشون رو پیش میبرن تا اینکه اونجایی که ما میدونیم و با اون موقع زمانی که با اسامه بن لادن بوده و داشتن نقشه میکشتن که دوباره تو امریکا چه کارهای خرابکاری بکنن و بعد امریکایی‌ها چقدر نتونستن که بفهمن یا نخواستن که بفهمن کاور اپ هایی که بوده که دنیا نفهمه یا اقلا امریکایی نفهمه که ایران چقدر جمهوری اسلامی، نه ایران، جمهوری اسلامی چه خطر بزرگی به دنیا. پرسیدم حالا از چه دوباره بپرسم. آقای تیمرمن میگه من کتابو تو 2005 نوشتم و این کتاب الان کیندل ورژنش که میتونید اون قسمت کیندلش رو فردا بخرید 2.99 امروز 3.99 که اضافه کرده تو 2020 و بعد از کشته شدن سلیمانی توضیح میده یه مقدار بیشتری اضافه کرده به این کتاب. برای این کسی که من خودم الان میرم میگیرم اون قسمتش رو بتونیم بخونیم به اضافه خود کتاب که واقعا خوندنیه. So why is it that they're appeasing the mullahs? Today in Clubhouse, before we started, I was in a room of the reformists. Oh my God. They're gloating about the event in Pakistan yesterday, that the Islamic Republic is doing this to protect its own integrity and its security of its people, like the Islamic Republic cares about the security of its people. They kill people left and right, but they're very worried. They have to go through terrorist acts in Pakistan. We know that they're funding, training, harboring terrorists. We've known for years. Why appeasing these mullahs? Ken, why?
That is a terrific question. It's one that has mystified me for years. I was asked it again 6-7 months ago by Shoshana Bryan, who works at the Jewish Policy Center. And so I wrote a story for her, an essay for her at JPC, jewishpolicy.org, or whatever it is. And I think there are a number of reasons. But the first and foremost is that the Democrat Party in the United States, the Democrat Party, not the Republicans, the Democrat Party believes that the Islamic regime in Tehran is their ally. Is their ally. The Democrat Party believes that the regime in Tehran is their ally and that they can do no wrong. Remember when Biden took office in 2021, what was the first thing that he did in the Middle East, as far as the Middle East was concerned? He took the sanctions off the Houthis. He distributed this ridiculous allegation by the CIA about Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, called him a thug and a murderer, stopped the delivery of Patriot missiles to Saudi Arabia, and essentially said, well, we're going to reopen the negotiations with the Iranian regime over their nuclear program. And we're going to basically let them keep their nuclear program and lift the sanctions. And without ever coming to a deal, with zero concessions from the Iranian regime, they waived the sanctions, and Iran's exports, oil exports, went from about 400,000 barrels a day at the end of President Trump's administration to over 2 million barrels a day today. And those sanctions are still officially in place, and the Biden people have just waived them arbitrarily. So this is something I put on the Democrat Party in the United States. The Democrat Party believes that the mullahs in Tehran are their allies.
خب از آقای تیمرمن می‌پرسم که ما میدونیم که همیشه توی امریکا الان 40 سال میگن که دولت ایران پول میده، تروریستا رو تربیت میکنه، میفرسته بیرون، پراکسیاشو داره. خب وقتی همه این چیزا رو میدونیم، چرا این امریکا چشمشو دائم میبنده به روی این چیزا؟ و کن میگه که اینو سوال خیلی خوبیه، میگه این مقاله برای jewishpolicy.org برای خانمی بسیار شوشانا نوشته که اونجا داره توضیح میده که مثلا جمهوری اسلامی رو دموکرات‌ها چقدر بهشون همیشه فکر میکنن که جمهوری اسلامی طرف امریکاست و طرف دموکراتاست، در که ما میگیم جمهوری اسلامی فقط طرف خودشه. سانکشن‌ها رو وقتی بایدن اومد رو هوتی‌ها برداشت، بر علیه بن سلمان شروع کرد مقاله نوشتن و CIA ریپورت داد بیرون و بهش آرمز نخواستن بفروشن به بن سلمان و همه این چیزا و تمام مدت داشتن به یک کاری میکردن که جمهوری اسلامی رو در اصل خوشحال کنن. میگه زمانی که ترامپ از آفیس رفت به خاطر سانکشن‌ها، به خاطر تحریمایی که حالا همه شما ایرانی‌ها بعضیاتون میگین چرا تحریم‌ها فقط مردم ضرر میزنه، نه گوش بدین درست. زمانی که ترامپ از قدرت رفته 400,000 بشکه نفت فروخته میشده، امروز 2 میلیون برل دی داره فروش میره. پولش کجا رفته؟ پولش شما مردم گرفتین؟ I'm asking my compatriots, the 2 million barrels a day, did it come to the people? The economic situation in Iran is devastating. It's going down every day.
Of course not. It's the Revolutionary Guards, the Sepah
IRGC
Pastaran that controls all of the oil exports. They take the money and they distribute it to their own people. They use it for terrorism. They use it to support the war in Yemen, to support Hezbollah, to support Hamas.
خب آقای تیمرمن میگه که سپاه پاسدارانه که پولای همه این نفتو میگیره و پول میده برای تمام این کارهای تروریستی تو یمن و تو جای مختلف و اینا. Brings me to a question. I hate to do this, but I have to. Okay, Pompeo was with the Mujahideen, which I don't understand for the life of me what's going on with these speakers for this money to go to Mujahideen and call her Madam President. The people of Iran are Mujahideen have no place in Iran. Everybody knows that. So Pompeo was there giving a speech, and he mentioned that the monarchists are heavily in collaboration with the IRGC. What's that all about?
I don't know what Pompeo said. I'm not familiar with that particular speech. And remember, he was director of the
CIA.
Central Intelligence Agency for a while, and he may know things that I do not know about specific collaboration. It is certainly true that the regime has tried to co-opt anybody. They've also worked with the MEK. Okay, they have years ago they were selling oil through the MEK in Iraq. So the regime will use anybody they possibly can to co-opt them to destroy their credibility.
خب از آقای تیمرمن پرسیدم که آقای پومپئو رفته برای مجاهدین سخنرانی کرده و آنجا گفته مشروطه خواهان، طرفدار مشروطه پادشاهی heavily collaboration، همکاری شدیدی با سپاه پاسداران دارن. این چیه؟ آقای تیمرمن میگه خب یادت نره پومپئو رئیس CIA بود یه زمانی و شاید اون یه چیزایی میدونه که من نمیدونم، ولی دولت جمهوری اسلامی این کار رو با گروه‌های مختلف کرده که خرابشون کنه. مثلا با مجاهدین خلق، آقای مجاهدین خلق که خیلی باید به قبقبتون می‌ریزین، مجاهدین خلق از طریق سپاه، از طریق مجاهدین خلق به عراق نفت میفروخته، اویل میفروخته و امکان اینم داره که بله توی مشروطه خواهان رخنه کنه برای اینکه در بیاد این خبر بیرون، همطور که در اومد بیرون و اونام خراب بشن. Okay, now I'm gonna, because we're running short, I want to make it real quick. Your book, The Election Heist, was amazing. I was reading it before all this happened, and it was like Ken Timerman had an hourglass, and he saw it all coming. Okay, it happened, and Trump didn't get elected, and all that happened. How do you see this panning out this election? What are the Trump won Iowa big time, 51%. How do you see this happening within the Republican Party?
Look, the Democrats are going to do whatever they can to steal this election. They did whatever they could to change the rules in 2020. They allowed this massive, massive flood of unverifiable mail-in ballots. We have no idea how many people actually voted, how many real people voted in 2020 in the presidential elections, because there was no signature verification. There was no way to verify where those ballots were coming from. And I still have screenshots on my telephone of not just election night, but 2 nights after election night, where Trump was still leading in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Georgia, and the rest. And they had to do what's called backfill the ballot boxes. Backfilling meaning they had to stuff the ballot boxes with enough of these phony ballots to put Biden over the top. So I don't know what they're going to do in 2024. What we know so far is that they're running a legal strategy. They're doing lawfare against President Trump with all these different lawsuits. They're trying to keep him off the ballot. But this man has just such extraordinary courage. He has extraordinary fortitude. The reason he is going to be the Republican nominee is because there is nobody in the Republican Party who's got the guts that this man has, who's got the strength that this man has to take all of the attacks and still stand up. You know, I have sometimes seen Ann Coulter, who is a conservative pundit, criticize Trump for not doing this, not fulfilling this campaign promise or that campaign promise. It is a miracle that President Trump got anything done at all. On day
the
one.
Russia hoax, all that. I
was at the Capitol on the day of his inauguration. I was there, right close up. I had a special seat, close to the inauguration. We had to go through Code Pink and all these left-wing demonstrators to get to the inauguration on January 20th, 2017 already. And they were already calling him illegitimate. They were already calling for him to be impeached. They were already working to have him be impeached. Jamie Raskin, who was on the January 6th committee, that's the seat that I ran for in 2012, the 8th Congressional District in Maryland. I was the Republican nominee. Jamie Raskin in December of 2016 said Trump was an illegitimate president, and he questioned on January 6th, 2017, Trump's election. He was an election denier in 2017. It's a miracle Trump got anything done, and he got amazing things done. That's what the Democrats are afraid of. And they are afraid that he has woken up the sleeping beast of the American people, and they are going to come back with a vengeance. and clean house in the State Department, in the Department of Justice, in all these different government agencies, and get rid of the deep state and finally turn the government back to the people, as, by the way, Donald Trump promised in his inaugural address on January 20th, 2017. He said, I am here not for me. I am here to turn this government back to the people of the United States, to you.
He has a great point there. I'm sorry, during the past 45 years that I've been here, back in the United States, it's going down. They need to do something. I mean, Trump is right. Make America great again.
We are losing our country.
سریع میپرسم چون میخوام یه سوال آخری هم از آقای تیمرمن بپرسم. پرسیدم درباره کن یه کتابی داره حتما بخونین، Election Heist. وقتی میخونین این کتاب دقیقاً میدید که چه اتفاقی برای ترامپ داره میفته. خیلی کتاب جالبی بود. همون موقع اومد بیرون. پرسیدم که چی میبینی؟ کن میگه که دموکرات‌ها هر کاری میکنن و کردن که ترامپ رو نذارن رو بلد باشه. چیزای دادگاه درست کردن بر علیهش، زمانی هم که بود نمیذاشتن کارشو بکنه، اگه ولش میکردن اون راشا هوکس و این کارا نمیکردن، همه بهش، حتی ریپابلیکن‌ها بعضیاشون بهش ایراد میگیرن که فولفیل نکردی کارایی که به ما قول دادی، هر که نمیتونست. دائم تو کنگره بر علیهش ایمپیچمنت بود. حالا امیدواریم باید ببینیم ان شاءالله که بره رو بلد و دفینیتلی که برای ریپابلیکن‌ها میره، ولی ان شاءالله که باز به قول کن صندوقا رو پر نکنن. I want to ask you one last question and then I'll let you go. How do you see the future of the Iranian movement and the regime change? These kids came on the street 6 months, lost their lives, lost their eyes. The prisons are full of political prisoners since the Mahsa movement. How do you see the future of Iran?
So Iranians in this country, Iranians in Europe, you need to stand up. You need to support them. You need to be vocal. You need to be calling your representatives in Washington, D.C. We need to change our policy in the United States. I hope when President Trump comes back in January of 2025, we will change our policy. But we need to be far more aggressive. Where are those Iranian billionaires bringing Starlink into Iran to provide internet that cannot be jammed by the regime? Where are those billionaires? It doesn't cost that much money. Bring Starlink to Iran so everybody can get their story out immediately. Where are the Iranian exiles coming out in support of all of those young people that you talk about who are demonstrating every day all across Iran? Why aren't they talking about this every single day to their members of Congress, to their friends, to their families? Why aren't they raising money for them? Why aren't they sending money to Iran to support them and their families? There are hundreds of billions of dollars in this community, in this Iranian community in exile. Where's that money going? It's going into their own pockets. People are selfish. They're looking after themselves. Many of the wealthiest ones are doing business with the regime. Shame on them. They should be helping the people. They should be helping the people who are putting their lives on the line. You have heroes every single day in Iran on the streets getting arrested. And what are you doing for them? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I agree. Of course, this time I have to say that the diaspora came out for 6 months. They were demonstrating, but that's not enough. We need to be organized. We need to lobby. We have to fight NIAC.
Raise money.
Not sit with NIAC. I'm sorry that Georgetown was a big disaster. We fell into the hands of NIAC during this movement, and that's an unfortunate thing. Kenneth Timmerman, thank you so much. If you decide to come to Clubhouse, where all these young kids with all these questions want to ask you questions, I will manage where they will send me questions. I won't have them coming up, so no bickering will take place. We'll manage a 1-hour Clubhouse room. If you decide, let me know. I'll gladly arrange it.
With pleasure. Have them go to my website, kentimmerman.com. You can
everybody go to kentimmerman.com and order the Kindle book, and or I'm going to order the preface that you said that you just wrote in 2020 and read that. Thank you so much. Like always, I've really enjoyed it. And good luck to you. Happy New Year.
Okay, thanks so much.
خب از آقای تیمرمن تشکر کردم. کتابش رو بخرید. kentimmerman.org وبسایتش رو برید. رو کیندل هم میتونید کتاب رو بگیرید و گوش کنید. پولایی که جمع میکنید و خرج ایران کنید. این همه ایرانی تو سیلیکون ولی نشستید، کارتون این کامپیوتر و تکنولوژی، سیسکو میسکو اینا رو همه رو درست کردید. بابا برای مملکت خودتون بکنین. دور نمیره، راه دوری نمیره. خلاصه خیلی ممنونم از بچه‌های اتاق فرمان، از آقای فارسانی که دقیقاً به داد ما رسید، صدف محمد که شبانه روز کار کردن، از همتون ممنونم، از شماهایی که با ما بودین. این برنامه اولم بود، امیدوارم هفته دیگه هم یه برنامه دیگه فکر کنم جنجالی بشه، اونم بد نباشه، با هم دیگه باشیم. و هفته یه دفعه چهارشنبه ها 9 صبح به وقت لس آنجلس با شما خواهم بود از NICTV. ممنونم آقای فارسانی، صدف محمد، خیلی ممنونم. بدرود میگم به همتون.
ترانه‌های یخزده، آدمک‌های بی امید، 40 سال سهممون شده عمامه سیاه‌سفید. ترانه‌های یخزده، آدمک‌های بی امید، 40 سال سهممون شده عمامه سیاه‌سفید. 40 سال زندگی ما فقط نفس کشیدنه، بزرگترین آرزومون به انتها رسیدنه. فکر میکنیم که زنده ایم، ما تو جوونی پیر شدیم، ما توی خاک خودمون به دست دین اسیر شدیم. باید به جنگشون بریم، ترس و سکوت بس دیگه. هر کی میگه درست میشه داره بهت دروغ میگه. تا خودمون بلند نشیم هیچی خودش خوب نمیشه. رفتن این بی بطه ها بدون آشوب نمیشه. کرد و عرب یا ترک و لور، بلوچ و گیل و مازنی، با هر زبون و هر لباس خودت نماد وطنی. باید که متحد باشیم تا از سیاهی بگذریم، چیزی نمونده تا سحر تو لحظه های آخری. ترانه های یخزده، آدمک‌های بی امید، 40 سال سهممون شده عمامه سیاه‌سفید. 40 سال زندگی ما فقط نفس کشیدنه، بزرگترین آرزومون به انتها رسیدنه، به انتها رسیدنه، به انتها رسیدنه.